November 8th, 2021. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And I am Don.
Yeah, so almost went into the ER today. Might still go, yeah. Huh. Might still go. My blood pressure, if you've been following the tales of Kevin, I stopped taking this one medication called aldactone, which it kind of does this thing where it's a diuretic, so it makes you pee a little bit more often, and it holds on to potassium a little bit more, so it lets you pee out the salt, hold on to the potassium. You need both, and it also and then a lot of that is controlled by what's called aldosterone, which is like a steroid or something, right? Hormone, whatever the fuck it is. And it's normal in a guy. You would normally have that, right? But like heredity, genetics with me, one of the questions was maybe I'm aldosterone or aldo resistant, meaning that my body doesn't want to pay attention to it. So like when your blood pressure gets high, right, your body releases certain hormones and chemicals that causes it to go down. Right now, if you gain a lot of weight, your body can lose control of that. I'm not obese. I am technically overweight, but like on the BMI scale, I'm not obese. So so it's a genetic thing with me, and it appears to be. But we didn't know. What had happened was I had that event 10 years ago where my blood pressure was stupid high, and it went pretty much normal when they gave me this aldactone stuff. But the problem is that my potassium was super low. So I was thinking like, well, and my doctors weren't sure either. And so the thought process is like, maybe I'll just, I'm dieting, I'm losing weight, I'm active. I'll go ahead and stop taking this and let's see what happens. I can always start taking it again, So that's what I've been doing for like the past month, and it's been fine. But the last couple of days, my blood pressure, so the first number is called your systolic, and the second number is called your diastolic, right?
Right.
So my systolic hasn't been really too bad. It fluctuates like everybody's does. Sometimes it'll be at like 155 or something, which is kind of high, but not crazy high. And then other times it might be like 129 or something, 131, which is fine. But my diastolic, it just keeps creeping up. So at first it was like, hanging out at like 80, then it gets like 83, and then it's like at 85, and it's like 85 is okay. And then like it's been like 90 recently, and then like yesterday, or like today at around noon, it went up to like 100. And like that's not great. Like 100, it's not dangerous yet. About 120 is dangerous. But my problem is I have this problem where my body can't stop my blood pressure from rising naturally. It doesn't have whatever that is. So if it keeps going up, it's a fucking problem. So I chilled out. I relaxed. I talked to my doctor, and I talked to the nurse on call. And I'm going to go in and see my doctor tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we're going to have a look at this. Now, I did restart the medication, but I only restarted it yesterday, and it takes a few days or so for it to kick in, really. So it's going to be a little bit of a slow thing. Now, right now, like before I got on the show, my blood pressure was about 91 on my diastolic. But again, my systolic is like 129 or something. So I talked to the woman, and she was like, the nurse, and she was like, I was like, well, when do I go to the emergency? I mean, when should I go? Like, when is it a problem for me? When should I go in? And she said that, this stupid thing, I should go in if my systolic is 200 and my diastolic is 100. Hold on. This fucking audio. Okay.
Audio.
Test. I don't know. So, So anyway, I'm checking it every hour, and as long as it like, even if it's at 100, which I don't like, I can kind of relax and it will kind of come down, and I just kind of gotta just get through tonight and I'll go in. Now, I'm going to take my pill again here at about 10 and let's see if that helps as well. So not in the danger zone at the moment, but it's kind of one of these weird things with me too. Like in the nighttime, my blood pressure gets higher than it is during the day usually. So I have to see if it goes up past 100, like 105 or something, then I'm just going to go into the ER and see if they're going to give me something for it. Cause I, if you get to like 120 or whatever, then you get, damage, and you're not just like stroking out, which you can have in a heart attack, but you also can damage your organs and your blood vessels and shit. So, that's kind of going on.
From me last week to you this week.
I know, man. It's crazy.
I mean, not me personally, just because I know everybody's concerned, but
yeah.
It sucks.
Well, I should be all right as long as this medication has time to kick in before my blood pressure gets any dumber.
Right.
I'm just going to try and chill out. So Corber's wedding. So, folks, if you ever listen to Tumbling with Tumbleweed or one episode of VGN Radio,
one or two,
Jason Corber was on talking about getting laid in a public park. Yeah. On a swing set or something.
He may have been inebriated.
Yeah. A little bit. Anyway, that guy just got married. And, basically, there was like, her family, there was like 50 people. And then like his family was like, or his friends and family were like 5 people or something. I guess. I didn't know.
It's like his cousin, his dad, you and me.
Right. Yeah. And so, but it was nice, good for him. That dude, he almost died about 2 years ago or something. And, like he had a heart attack. I guess that's what it was. And he collapsed at home and he was unresponsive. And luckily, one of his girlfriend's kids, I guess, knew CPR. I think it was one of her kids, and was performing it on Jason. And then the EMTs came and they ended up, putting him in a coma. And then he was in one of them low temperature things and everybody thought he was brain dead. And it wasn't looking very good for him. And then, he just kind of came out of it. And
typical Corber fashion, he just came out of it like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. And he just had no idea what had happened or anything. And, they called him like the walking miracle because of that. And they still don't exactly know what happened, I guess, talking to him. He sounds like one of his heart valves might be a little bit wonky. But he, it had a lot to do with him smoking and drinking and not eating, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a multiplier there as to that on top of this other thing. So he's given up drinking, apparently, and I guess he's given up smoking. I wasn't really aware that he smoked very often, but I guess he was. Yeah. And so then he, it's been a while, and then he slipped at work like about a year ago on some ice and broke his leg, and I guess really messed it up to the point where like he's got a titanium rod in there now, and he's got a limp. It's not like a Captain Hook peg leg limp or anything, but he's got a bit of a limp.
He's in pain.
Yeah. But I mean, he's got a girlfriend and now he's got a wife. I mean, they got married and they seem very happy. So, I'm happy for them and, good. Yeah. And Don and I ate some of the food, and that might've been what caused the problem, because it might've been sodium juiced up for me and messed me up.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
What?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll tell you, that was probably one of the best weddings I went to, only because of the fact that it lasted about 2 hours. all together. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, there was
like,
no
okay, I'm
dancing.
leaving, and
There was no dancing.
yeah,
That was the best.
yeah. There's no dancing or nothing like that. It was like a really quiet ceremony, like at a cabin.
Yeah,
in the middle of like the national park, and there's just like, and it was like a really busy part of the park because there was like tons of like normal people just walking around. So it was a nice day.
Yeah,
but there's, you know what I mean? You step outside and there's like people walking around normal, like, hey, what's going on in there? It's like, don't come in here, stay away. But it was,
well, they were looking for the bathroom,
started,
and they weren't sure if they had to go into the building to go to the bathroom, but it was around the other side. So people kept walking towards us like they were thinking it was the bathroom, but whatever. They couldn't work the doors right anyway.
they couldn't even get in and out. So
yeah, so
it was nice and quick. It was
quick. Quiet. The food was, they had way too much food, and it was a good time. I don't have anything else to really say about it because nothing really happened. You know, like nobody did anything embarrassing. Nobody got really drunk, and you know,
people kept kicking them candles on the ground. They kept mentioning.
Yeah, Don was really upset about the candles that were laid on the ground that were electric, that couldn't cause a fire. But he was like, people should pick those up because people are going to knock them over. And then they kept knocking them over, like he said. So,
and then they would set them back up. It's just like, come on, guys. Like, don't you see what's happening here?
Oh, this audio thing is killing me. What the fuck is going on with my board today? Everything's fucking failing with me today. All right.
Uh-oh.
No, it's all right. It's just if the listeners are going to hear all kinds of weird noise problems and stuff, I'm sorry. There's something wrong with the mixing board today. For no reason. It's been fine this whole time, and now today it's not happy. I don't know. It's bullshit.
We're in a nice, happy place.
In Donnie's computer, the one that he calls in on, because he has his own computer, it keeps blanking out. I'm waiting for it to just reboot while you're on. I'm just going to shut everything off and go to bed, have a heart attack, and die. It's bullshit.
Bullshit.
We got some email.
Oh, who did? We did?
Yeah. I haven't looked at them in a while. I apologize to the people that wrote in, but we hadn't gotten any in so long that I stopped looking. But I did look today, and we have now Eric and Kevin. I know you guys wrote me before about being a guest on the show, and we will do that. I'm sorry that it's been so long, but that will happen. If you've been wondering, I never wrote you back. It's just one of those things where
it's just easier to tell you here.
Yeah. Now we got this. Now we have this new thing at work on Mondays too. Where like I work, and then from 6 to 8, I have to do some extra work, and then when that ends, then I come on here. So it's like I don't got time to do anything. It's dumb. Whatever. We'll work it out. Yeah, so one of the questions is this one's from Tony, and he says, how about an update on all the past crew? Well, Jedi got married. Let's just start with him. He's the one that most people are probably least interested in. Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
No, he got married, and he's got a she didn't have the baby yet, right? Or
I don't think so. It's on the way.
It's on the way, yeah. And so he's got a kid on the way.
Poor kid.
And you're funny.
What? No, I didn't say that. I was kidding, Jedi. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And that kid's gonna have lots of video games to play. He's gonna have a good time. If it's a boy, I think it's a girl. I think the reveal was that it was a girl. So the girl's gonna have a lot of video games to play. And I guess he started a new job. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he's been doing all right career wise. He worked at this lighting place for a while, and I don't know. He tried a couple other things, and then he ended up back at that lighting place, and now he's gone on to something else. So, good for him. We wish Jedi well. He's doing all right. He's not on Facebook much anymore, though. Like, he's becoming too much of an adult. You know, he's adulting to the point where now Facebook is no longer, where he should go.
It's not where I need to be.
You know, those people that do that, they become family people. They disconnect from all the computers and stuff. And I don't know. That's not me. I'm not doing that. But there's some people that do that. My brother, he's basically the same, right? He's still working, driving his truck, and his youngest daughter turned 19 recently. She's out of high school, obviously, and I don't know if she's in college. I think maybe. These days it's weird because everybody's online and stuff, so nobody goes to college. So
Right.
I don't know how that's going. But yeah, he seems like he's all right. No, I mean, there's really like literally like there's nothing new with him in all this time. Like I couldn't tell you. There's nothing eventful that's happened to my brother that I can think of, which I guess is good.
Yeah.
Anderson, I mean, he's a mess. Oh,
Who knows what he's up to?
That's right. He's on the show. Sorry.
He's out fighting Amish people.
Yes. Don Cease, I did talk about. We went on these ATVs, the hate.
Yeah.
He's fine. You know, he's got a young child as well, although I don't know, man. He's got to be like 7 or something by now. It's been a while.
Right.
But that keeps him and his wife pretty occupied. He does have an older daughter, but she's at least 21 because she went to the bar one night with us. So no longer a kid. I don't know how often he sees her or whatever, but she came out with him, so that's cool. But otherwise he seems all right. I don't know anything, life altering with him. And Larry's not healthy. Let's just say that. Larry's still Larry, but he's trying to get another job other than the job he has. And, he's had a heart attack and he had a stent put in. I think just one. Yeah. And, no lifestyle changes though. Just a lot of drugs and eating large pizzas and drinking and, everything else. Like he is not long for this world. I mean, we've all told him, we've all tried to reach him. You can't, he doesn't care and he wants to do what he's doing. So, what else can you do? Yeah.
Right.
But he is still with us for now. And, I see him when I play trivia, he's okay, but I don't know. The problem with Larry is that like, you try to like, talk to him, but you never quite know if he's being serious or not about stuff. Right. Like he went in recently to the emergency room because he thought he was having a heart attack, and they brought him in and they ran all their tests and everything. And, they told him that was a panic attack, that wasn't actually a heart attack that he was having. He was having a panic attack. And Larry was like, all that stuff's made up. He's like, what was it really? And I can never tell if Larry's being serious, like he doesn't believe in that stuff, or because he might not, because he's Larry, or he's, just kidding around. And meanwhile, he's on something for that. I don't know. And that's his whole deal. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So, yeah, everybody's still around, but in terms of scheduling, Donnie and I are kind of it. I don't. My brother's too busy to do anything. Although he's not, like,
right.
He says he has all these. He only has time like half a day during the week, but I think he only works 3 days a week. So it's like, I don't know. He just doesn't want to do the shows, whatever. And I'm sure Larry could do the show, but I don't want him dying on the show. So we're not going to get Larry on the show. Yeah. But maybe one day that we'll have him as guests or something. That'd be cool. I think
we're the only two that can actually sit down and be like, all right, let's just do this on Monday. We can sit and pick a day.
Right.
Because the two of them,
right.
They're just like, well, I don't know. I got it.
And we're pretty reliable. I mean, basically.
Best part of the show anyways.
Most of the time Larry was pretty reliable when he was on the show, but he didn't have a lot to say half the time because he just didn't think he had anything to say. You had to kind of remind him about things.
Yeah, he didn't. He put me to sleep.
That was a sports show. This one's from Kevin. He said, you asked for some topics, so here are some ideas that would interest me. So he gave us a big, long list of topics. And we can kind of go through some of them and, as time allows, and talk about some of them, I think, since that was a good idea. I guess. Yeah. So the first one was probably just targeted at me. It's crazy prices of retro games and systems.
totally you.
Yeah. So in recent years, especially now, though, after people got checks from the government, is what I can blame it on, as well as fat unemployment checks. A lot of people that were stuck at home decided to buy video game stuff. And a lot of people bought headsets, like VR helmets. People wanted PlayStations and Xboxes, but there's people that already had that stuff. And a lot of people decided, hey, I'm going to go buy some retro stuff. I'm going to go buy some old school consoles or some old games that I like, etc., which has driven that market, the prices on things way up for what people are willing to pay. Because, hey, when you get free money, what does it matter?
Right.
Buy what you like. So, the way this kind of works is it's generational. And the people that have the money to spend on games right now and aren't too old are mostly people that played Genesis and Super Nintendo, right? The Atari group, which would be like us, Donnie, I guess.
Right.
We're kind of, a little bit too old to be doing that. It's more like the 40-year-olds are buying Genesis and Super Nintendo. Now, it's not to say that people aren't buying Ataris. That's going on too. There's lots of people buying old systems. I buy old systems, of course. Everybody knows that. But the collectors of these games are crazy. And of course, it's not just those. That there's PlayStation and there's N64 and stuff, and it's an interesting thing. Like the more obscure the system, but the more basically with games, is it a good game? It's probably going to be worth a lot of money as long as it wasn't sold en masse. And so Sega Saturn games will be kind of expensive because nobody really bought the Sega Saturn. They all bought the PlayStation, but the Sega Saturn had some great games. So now people are rediscovering the Sega Saturn and buying Saturn and buying up all the good games, which is causing people to complain about the prices on things, right? They're not buying up Madden. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so old and nobody wants to play that version of it anymore. And then, of course, RPGs always sell, role-playing games. Nintendo, first-party titles always sell well. Whatever was a big deal. But, yeah, for the most part, I haven't seen too much interest in actual PlayStation, probably because there's a gazillion of them, and there's tons of titles for the PlayStation. So there hasn't been as much of a draw on the PlayStation as it is for N64 and Sega Saturn. And I've seen 3DO and Atari Jaguar right now is dumb expensive. And everything you can think of, though, is really kind of up there on price. And I think they're starting now to even go towards PlayStation 2 and Xbox, original Xbox, but then also they're starting to have people talk about PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, which isn't even that long ago. But there's people that are trying to, get the games that are cheap now for those systems while they're available, and they're collecting them. So yeah, the prices are just outrageous right now, and whatever. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to stop. Really, I mean, it's weird though. I think it's partially based on sort of the economy of things. When money gets tight for people, a lot of people will unload these collections,
Right.
And so they, right now there's money and in people's pockets and everything. But if the economy gets cruddy and people need money, you start seeing big collections go up for sale online, as well as people get old. One thing I have noticed, especially if you watch YouTube videos of collectors and old systems and things like that, is all of those guys are old. They're all my age, or some of them are older, and it's kind of that's a diminishing market. You know what I mean? Like those guys,
Right.
the old guys are going to go away. Like there's not too many young people interested in a Commodore 64. You know what I'm saying? Like there's
Yeah.
some, but there's not as many. You know, I think that it's slowly shrinking. Like the older you go, that market's going to diminish more and more. Those hobbyists kind of get out of it. They still got years left and everything, but it's like, yeah, it's not the same as, the younger audiences, etc. But yeah, this just kind of happens. It's right when you get to an age where you start to have like money, you're sort of struggling through your 20s and stuff, and you get into your 30s and you start making like your major purchases, like your house and your car and things like that, or you're having kids and, that kind of stuff. And then you get to a point where like, you're right around 40 and you start having like extra money, your career has gone a certain way or whatever, and you start to be able to spend money more. And that's when it happens. And so like when you're that age, like, you're going to go buy nostalgic things. It doesn't necessarily have to be video games. Some people buy, toys and, just all sorts of stuff, that they wanted when they were kids, but they couldn't have, and there's a good market in that, in the sense of just collecting the things that will be worth something someday because they were out of reach of people back in the day. Yeah. It's kind of like if you ever watch that YouTube channel.
Will It Work?
No, that's a good one. What the Tech Moan? Looks like Tech Moan, but it's Tech Moan. It's this English guy, and he mostly looks at classic like hi-fi systems. It's not the only thing he looks at. He looks at other interesting things too, but he looks at weird formats and all this sort of stuff. But he goes on, like, when he was young, he would be like looking through these catalogs of these like record players. You remember how it was, you would see these, stereo systems and stuff, and you'd be like, I want that. You know what I mean? Or like you want one of those boom boxes, but you wanted one of those really cool boom boxes, that played like 3 tapes at once, or, had speakers galore and all this sort of stuff, but you couldn't afford it because back then, I mean, you might look at the catalog today and it might say it was like $300, but that'd be like $3,000 back then or something,
It might as well be.
Yeah, crazy money. So, but he goes and he buys these things used, and then he talks about them and he fixes them up and cleans them up and stuff. And so that it's like the same thing, he goes on and finds something that he liked and wanted when he was young. And I think it's going to be similar with, younger generations. They're just going to buy like more manga and anime, Batman, all these kids that grew up with Batman. There's going to be a lot of Batman stuff for sale. You know what I mean? That people are going to want. And,
Right.
I don't know. They'll be nostalgic about their PlayStation 3s and Xbox 360s and whatever, and on up. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, this one's more for you, Danny.
Oh, okay.
Is it irrational to be a fan of a pro sports team you have no connection to?
No.
But you got to give them more than that. That's
no, you don't. No. Is it irrational to be a fan of a sports team?
You know how like Mole likes the Steelers? Is that irrational that he likes the Steelers since he has no connection to Pittsburgh, and you know what I mean? Like he has no.
See, when I was a kid, all right, I liked the Miami Dolphins. I always liked the Browns because I was like, oh, I live in Cleveland. Or not the Miami Dolphins, the San Francisco 49ers. We'll go with them. They were, it's for both of them. It was both for a little bit. I'll explain in a second. Because when I was a kid, I got a lot of hand-me-down clothes, and like not just from my brothers, but like from my mom's friends, like their kids. Their kids would grow out of clothes, and they'd bring them over and be like, "Here you go." So when I was a kid, I had like a Miami Dolphins shirt. I wasn't a fan, but I wore the shirt, and I was like, "These are cool. They look cool. The colors, da 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 da." So I kind of was like, "Oh, the Miami Dolphins. I should look into that, right?" But what it was my 49ers jacket. Don't know where I got it from. but it's like one of those old varsity jackets where it's like gold sleeves with like the red fur in the middle, like a vest almost.
Right.
But, yeah, like a varsity jacket, and it was a 49ers one. I had no idea who was on the 49ers. I had no idea, anything about football. But I walked around in that jacket and told everybody, I'm like, I'm a 49ers fan. And to this day, I'm actually, I guess that would be my connection if that's what he's saying. But that's the thing is with professional sports, all it takes is, one thing to pick your interest, to get you into it. So, I'm not sitting here rah for the 49ers every day, every weekend or nothing like that. But when I play Madden or something, I'll be like, oh, I'll be the 49ers, So, yeah, it is not irrational to enjoy a professional sports team that you have no.
Yeah, I agree. I think, though, that if you, there's no need to be, to talk against the hometown team. Like Mole, for instance, could like the Steelers.
Yeah, go ahead.
But it doesn't have to be hating the Browns. You know what I mean?
Well,
why? Okay, there's a rivalry there, but is it? But it's also his hometown team. He doesn't need to be that way. Whatever.
But him, all he wants to do is push people's buttons.
I realize that's kind of what he's doing it for. And it's probably
it's just like Blackie with the Seahawks. Dan with whatever team he likes this year, because he switched them so many times.
Yeah, it just doesn't have any. Whatever.
It's kind of a weird question if you think about it, because it's like any team that you like, there's something there that gives you a connection to them.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But you can't, unless you pay, which most of these guys we're talking about aren't. I'm sure of it. Unless you pay for one of those sports packages that gives you all the games and all the markets that aren't blacked out. The only games you can basically see all of is the Browns, for this town, if you live in New York, whatever. But I'm just saying, in Cleveland, if you're into football, just football in general, you got to watch the Browns game. What else are you going to watch? Yeah, you can wait for the next game, the 4:00 game, and watch whatever random two teams are on that, or the Monday night or Thursday night games, whatever random game. But you know what I'm saying? If you're into the Seahawks or the Steelers, you can't watch all the games. So it's most of the time you can't. It's a bit silly. I don't know. Yeah. You can't enjoy it. It's that's where I'm kind of thinking I'm into, well, all right, you're into that, but you spend most of your time just complaining about the home team rather than watching your team. You can't even watch your team.
Yeah. Right.
Stupid.
That's what I think one of before I stopped, I blocked them all, or I unfollowed them, or whatever it was on Facebook. Just before I did that, when I was finally done with this nonsense, it was I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago when the Browns were 0-16, or when they didn't win any games, or they only won one game, and him and his buddy were on Facebook. Oh, the Browns this and the Browns that, and I got on there and I was I go, seriously, making fun of the Browns right now, who are 0-16, is kicking a baby. It's there's no point in it. What are you doing?
It's nobody's going to disagree with you, basically. Right?
Yeah, it's how about you just worry about what your team's doing? And he wasn't having that. He was, oh well, you sound like a sorry Browns fan who doesn't know what. And it's just no, it's I'm not arguing with you. Yeah, they suck. It's everybody, and that's the thing is everybody knows it.
Right.
You're not saying anything new. You're not, it's why don't you go talk about how your Steelers are going to go beat the Chargers, or how about they're going to do this, or they're going oh, nobody cares about that. Oh, okay.
Right. Those people are just annoying. I know. That's why I'm saying. Yeah.
And that's why I've blocked him, because I was just well, what's the point? All he's doing is just saying stuff to troll people.
Right. For real. Yep.
No thanks.
Right.
That's why most people are blocked, because they annoy me. I guess that's why you would block people, but whatever. You know
Yeah,
what I
or
mean?
just I block some people just so I don't get into an argument with them like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I can handle them in real life, but they're going to say something inflammatory that I'm just going to disagree with, and I don't want to walk into that because I don't want to
Yeah.
get into it. All right, so this one's more for me, I suppose. It's kind of a
Who's it from?
multi-part question. Well, they're all the same. They're all from Kevin, not me.
Oh.
But
He's been sending them every week. Like, why
no,
aren't these guys
he
reading
made a
these?
huge list and he sent us all.
Oh, that's right. The list of things to talk about.
Yeah,
That's right. Sorry.
he says. So, how do nuclear weapons / reactors work? What happened at Chernobyl or Fukushima?
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's a big one. I think. Well, I mean, these are topics for a whole show. I think he's
Only got like 10 minutes, man.
Well, nuclear weapon is so basically.
Here we go.
Okay. It's not that difficult. So you basically have like a molecule, basically. Let's imagine like a molecule, and it's got all these bits.
Start with the smallest part.
Yeah.
Build our way up.
Right.
Here we go.
So most of your molecules that everything is made out of are very stable. They don't do anything, right? But if it's fissionable, right? What happens is that in like uranium 239, for instance, is fissionable. What happens with that is that the molecule is basically unstable, and it starts to try and sort of. It's kind of like repairing itself, but it's not because it's just going to be constantly unstable. So it's throwing off neutrons, which is what they're made out of. Like, part of it is made out of there. And so it's launching off these neutrons, and at low, a low number, a low concentration, because these things are super small. Like if you had a piece of raw uranium in your hand, it would be basically safe. There's nothing really to worry about there. So what they do though is they said, okay, well, this is what we need because this atom, this molecule, whatever, is unstable. And what we think we can do is we can blow it apart because it's unstable. And if we do, we'll release all of that energy that's inside of that all at once, right? Creating this massive amount of heat. So first of all, they needed to get a lot of it. So they had to take the uranium-239 and process it because most of uranium is not uranium-239. It's only like trace amounts. And it's like a metal. It's like a rock. So they do something where they basically pulverize it and turn it into a gas. And then they spin it in these centrifuges, and somehow like the heavier 239, they can get it off, get it by spinning it a certain frequency, a certain rate, and they can get it off of there. And that's kind of a trade secret. That's not something we share with people. People figure it out like Iran and stuff. But we don't advertise how that's done. I couldn't tell you how that's done. Anyway, so you get enough of this stuff. And now you have this, like, it's a lot hotter at that point and you wouldn't want to hold it in your hand because there's a lot more of these things flying off of it, and when they hit your cells, they'll damage your cells. Now your body can take a certain amount of damage from radiation. The sun's radioactive, rocks on the ground are radioactive, but it's very low. And your body is, you're a human being. You were born on this planet, through thousands of millions of years. Your body can handle a certain amount of radiation and damage, but not when it gets to be too much, then it can't. So what happens is with the nuclear weapon, the first one, in World War II, we had two bombs. We had Fat Man and Little Boy.
That's right.
And Little Boy was the first one we dropped. And how that basically worked, and it's the simplest design, is that we basically took a mass of this uranium and put it into like a baseball sized core kind of thing on one end. And then on the other end, you basically have just like one or whatever it is, electron or whatever, and they fire that at high speed at the ball. And as soon as it manages to hit one of those neutrinos or whatever, and they start exploding, they all fly into other ones, and that creates a chain reaction so that they all end up, igniting, and then it creates the nuclear explosion, which took out Hiroshima. And that's actually kind of a weak bomb. I know it blew up a whole fucking town in Japan, but that's actually the weaker of the two. So the Fat Man, the way that one worked was that they took that baseball sized thing, and they still kind of do this today. This is still basically the same way they do it. They put it in the middle, and then they surrounded it with like explosives. And so these were sort of like shaped charges, and they ignite all of those explosives at the same time. So the explosion compacts the uranium, or, we plutonium now because it's like more enriched from nuclear reactors, but it's all the same shit. It compacts it, and that causes a much bigger explosion because more of that material got utilized. You know what I mean? Like none of it went to waste. So you have an even bigger bomb, and that took out Nagasaki. Now, they've added some things to that effect over time, to make the explosions more pronounced, and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there is actually a rate of return on that. Anything more than like a 50 megaton explosion is useless because most of the explosion ends up in outer space because it's so fucking big. So they don't usually do that. And these days, the way militaries are is that, and the thinking basically is that if a nuclear war broke out, they're not planning. They could, of course, but they're not planning on hitting like New York City or Cleveland or Dallas or whatever. Like they don't want to take out a major metropolitan area because I don't think anybody really wants to be a mass murderer. I mean, maybe Hitler did or something, you know what I mean? But most people do not. Instead, what they're trying to do is create sort of smaller yield, focused nuclear weapons to hit military targets, underground bunkers, for instance, or if you had a military base of some size, they would hit it with that, right? But it's mostly just about small scale at this point. There's plenty of we've got plenty of bombs. We could wipe out the whole world many, many times over. So along those same lines, then, when it comes to nuclear reactors, with that fission that happens where it's not stable and it generates this heat, when you have this sort of concentrated plutonium or uranium reactor or whatever, when it's that condensed from not from an explosion, but, from the centrifuges, making it into a pure form of uranium-239 or plutonium, or there's other things too. There's like thorium and all this sort of stuff. But when you have that, it's hot. It's like temperature hot. It's like, it's going to burn. And actually, I don't even know. I think plutonium. But anyway, and you get a reaction out of it. So you put it in water and you put it inside this reactor. And I think it can be stabilized if you have like the right materials around it. But if you put in like these other materials, it turns it into it gets more reactive. And so it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And that ends up boiling water, turns a steam turbine, and that's how we end up with electricity from a nuclear reactor. As long as you've got the water flowing through and you have good control over the control rods that basically control the reaction's heat, let's say, or speed of the reaction, or whatever you want to call it, then it's going to be perfectly safe, basically. It's a closed loop system. It won't leak. It's not going to explode. It won't really explode into a nuclear explosion because it's not being condensed or weaponized in such a way that it'll cause it to blow up. Plus, nuclear power, the fuel, the nuclear part of it isn't like with a nuclear weapon, it's like a 90% purity or above. Who knows what it actually is, but it's really high. It's got to be really pure. Where if you want to just get nuclear fuel, I think it can be like 20% enriched. So it's a much lower enrichment. It's not going to explode. But then you have Chernobyl and Fukushima, and there's also some other reactor accidents that have happened throughout time. Chernobyl was basically the Russians, or I guess the Ukrainians, I don't know who was running it. It's in Ukraine, but maybe it was Russian people. They had this reactor, and it was, working and everything, but they decided they were going to do this experiment to see what would happen if the cooling system was shut down accidentally, and would the turbines be able to supply enough water to the reactor. But they had some chain of events that took place where the water, no, it's okay, where the water ended up being already pretty hot. And so the water was getting to a point of like boiling point. And when that happens with this particular reactor, it creates these voids in the reactor itself, which creates sort of a cascade of more boiling and more heat that becomes uncontrolled. And so couple that with their idea of, hey, let's shut the cooling system off, made it so most of that water boiled away. And then at which point you couldn't reinsert, they didn't have enough control rods inserted. The control rods are made out of like boron, and you insert the control rods into the core, and it would normally slow the reaction, but this was so hot that the control rods, when they try to reinsert them, they would melt. Welcome back, Don.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the control rods would melt, and now there's no water in the reactor, and so then it ends up melting, and it starts to create gas. It starts to create hydrogen gas, which is explosive, and at some point it explodes. And it blows the top off of the thing. And in the case of Chernobyl, it exposed the radioactive core, and then you have this burning fire. So if you think about it, it's like a little piece of the sun that's like sitting, inside this thing. And the radiation is kind of like light. It's like a ray, like light. You just can't see it, really. So, like, if you are like there and if you even could see the core, you were basically dead, because there would be that much light, like the sun hitting you, and that would be like at a massive amount of
death.
Yeah, the going through your body. Fukushima was very similar. It was an experiment, obviously. They had the tsunami that knocked out their backup generators, and they had no electrical power, so they couldn't run their cooling system. So Fukushima ran out of water, and some of their cores, I don't know if it was all four, but some of their cores melted, but it didn't escape the containment chamber, luckily for them. But they did, at least two of them, blow the tops off from the hydrogen that was produced, and blew a lot of radiation into the air. Chernobyl was worse, because basically that radioactive core got blown all over the place, killing everything in the area. Fukushima, still bad, radiation everywhere, but not as bad as Chernobyl. So, yeah, there you go.
It's not a ghost town now, is what you're saying.
Well, it is in some parts, yeah. But, yeah. I mean, they're still working on it. Like, they're not done, because they have a leak. And so, like, they keep containing the water in these giant containment vessels, but they've run out of, I mean, I don't know how many, there's hundreds of them, and they're huge, and they have no place to put this radioactive water. So they've told basically the world that they're gonna start pouring that radioactive water into the ocean, because they don't have any other place to put it.
Why not?
Yeah. So
but Chernobyl's like a ghost town, isn't that that's like a,
yeah,
there's nothing there.
Right. Well, I mean, there is people there, but they there's not a lot. Like there's some
mutants.
There's just some old people there that didn't want to give up their land and stuff, and they're still there. But a lot of people that were there got thyroid cancer and things like that. So it's not a safe place to go. But you can go on visits because, again, your body can handle a certain amount of radiation, and you can you're not going to go right near the reactor itself. That's been closed off and sealed and stuff. But you can go to Pripyat, which is the town there. Lots of people do. You can go on YouTube and look at it. And you can visit it and stuff, but you got to just be careful. Like, you can't be there for too long because you'll end up just getting overexposed to radiation. I mean, I wouldn't go. I'm not dancing with death. I don't need extra radiation in my life. But some people don't care and they go and check it out. And so it's like, all right, good for you. I'm not going to risk thyroid cancer over there. I got enough fucking problems.
Go take a selfie.
Yeah, but YouTube's got it. I got a book all about this woman. She was one of the first people because she had a father or something that had a pass to go through the unauthorized zone, and she would take her motorcycle and drive into the old town and take photos. And then lots more people do it these days because it's Ukraine, and they probably were like, "Hey, we can make money doing this,"
right?
And started selling things, even though it's not safe. Who cares? People want to pay. Yeah. I could tell you some other crazy things about Chernobyl, but not today.
Dude, I laughed through half of the first part of that. I don't know why, but I got the giggles because I was just like, oh, geez, here we go. Nuclear reactors.
Kevin's going to talk for an hour.
Yeah. I just started laughing. I couldn't stop.
He knows all kinds of nonsense. Well, here's one for you. Favorite board games or role-playing games, if you have any.
Samurai swords. No, that one sucked.
I remember that game.
Remember that one? That was so. Listen, people, I'm going to tell you something. Here's what you like when you get a new game. When people get a new game, they sit there. You sit down. You look at the parts. You pull out the instructions. You read the instructions fully, as much as you can. Right? Because you want to get an idea how to play the game. And then you go ahead and you start the game. And of course, you got to look back at the rules and make sure you're doing everything right. These games that Kevin Baird brought over to my house had so many instructions. They had like booklets. There was like, you need to look at this booklet to do this. You need to look at this booklet to do this. You got to look at this one. And it was so huge. You couldn't just sit there and be like, all right, everybody read the rules because there was just too much. You know what I mean? So we would literally start these games. Remember when we did Samurai Swords? You were like, all right. Rule number 1, everybody takes a die. It's just like, oh, okay. And we just went rule by rule by rule. We got like halfway through. It was like, oh, wait a minute. We've been doing this wrong.
Oh, like, yeah. No, I know.
It's a good time. I used to.
Bad candy. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, God, turn my poop green or red or whatever. Everybody's poop turned a different color.
Yeah.
One of my favorite board games from when I was a kid was this board game called Superstition.
I've heard of it, but I never played it.
Yeah, I wanted to get I've seen it on eBay and stuff. I wanted to get it. And it's just basic. It's just it's like a mousetrap. Like a mouse, you know how like mousetrap, you never really played mousetrap, you just set it up and let the ball roll down and kick everything and be like, yay, and then you put it away. That's what this game was like. It was like little superstitions. There was but each little station had a superstition, like a broken mirror or walking under a ladder or something like that. And they had you had like a base for each thing, and there would be 2 pegs. And underneath the pegs, one of the pegs would be connected to a rubber band. So you get to the superstition, you put your piece on there, and then you'd be like, okay, you pick a peg, and depending on which one you picked, either a monster came out and grabbed you or it didn't. So it was kind of cool because it was like, oh, this is unknown.
Yeah.
So that game, I mean, you want to say things like Monopoly and Risk, but they take so long. Like literally, sometimes those games could take 2 days.
Yeah. Or like Nightmare with the VHS tape.
Oh my God. Who is the oldest? And we all stop like, okay, hold on. I'm February. Yeah.
VHS games, that's silly shit.
What about you? Hero Clicks. I liked Hero Clicks.
Yeah, Hero Clicks was fun. Yeah,
it's different.
It. Yeah, it's good with a group of people.
Yeah. I mean, we played a lot of games, people. You got to understand. I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to like go back and think of like one that I like really enjoyed more than any other because they're all about the same. I mean, when I was growing up, we played a lot of board games just because that's all I had. I didn't have like video games or anything. You know, we played D&D too to kill time, and we didn't even have any of the books or anything. It was mostly just made up with pen and paper. Um, you know, and then things progressed, of course. But I wouldn't necessarily say any of that was that fun either. It was mostly just most of that stuff is just time killer, really. But yeah, it can be a good time playing games with other people. You know, it just depends on the group of people you're with. That seems to be more of the defining thing about it. You know, if you're in a good group of people, you can have a lot of fun. If you're with a bunch of cranky pants that don't like anything or can't, or like Adam, who can't remember to take his turn.
Oh my God.
So you got to just yell at him all the time. It's your turn. And he's got to sit there and stare at the board because he doesn't know what's been going on for the last 20 minutes.
We played that conspiracy game. Remember that one? I don't know if you remember that one. It was like a briefcase and you become a guy and you got to like get the briefcase somehow. And they like, you have $10,000 to bribe people so that you can have an advantage over everybody else. And Adam went in there and his first move was like, I'm putting all $10,000 on this guy. And we all just looked at him like, that's not the idea. It's like, you're not supposed to pick just one guy. You like got to spread it out across every. He's like, nah, I'll put it on this guy. And then the rest of the game, we just spent. All of us were just like, we'll just make sure that guy never gets it. He's like, I can't believe what's going on. We're like, dude, it's your own fault. You're dumb. I'm just gonna put it all on him. Like, okay. Go ahead, stupid.
Sometimes it can be fun just, to make fun of other people. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Board games, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
Yeah, because, I mean, especially like back in the day, all you think about is like Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders. Yeah. You know, like Risk or
Connect Four and Simon.
Yeah, Perfection. Remember that one?
Yeah, Trouble.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, okay, last question for tonight. Okay. We got lots more for the future weeks. Thanks, Kevin.
Sweet.
If anybody else has stuff like this, please send it. Oblast@vgn.us. We'll give you our answers on the air or anything else you want us to talk about. Most insane video game ever. The Commodore 64 had a lot of weird stuff. Most insane video game ever. I mean, it's probably that Japanese one where you have to shove your finger up somebody's ass. But I haven't played it. A boonga boonga.
I don't want to.
You get a big plastic finger, and there's a butt on the console, and you have to jam it in the ass. I don't even know if it's real or if it was like an art project or something. I mean, it was a real thing. It was real, but I don't know if it was like actually in arcades or whatever.
Well, I mean, it depends on your definition of crazy. Really, right? Because like you and I would say, this game is this D game.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of crazy because you're just like, I don't understand this. And then, then you force Packard to play it and we just leave. But, what was that?
Road Rash had a lot of crazy moments for us because, we didn't, it was the dawn of video in games. And so there would be like video segments and stuff, but then like at one point there was like a commercial that came on and Don and I were both like, what the
like, wait a minute.
It's like a full-on commercial, because we didn't touch the controllers for a while. It just started to do that. And it was crazy. Like, and that was kind of today. It's weak sauce, but back then we were kind of like really blown out by that.
And then also, what was that fighting game? I always ask you this like once a year or something. What was that fighting game that was banned in all the countries? Remember it? It was on PlayStation. And
I know what you're talking about, and I can't remember the name of it.
They were like, this is so bloody and this is so violent, and then we played it and it was just like, this isn't really.
Yeah, it was awful. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, there was that. What was that company called? They made like a lot of bike games, skateboard games because they were getting in on that Tony Hawk thing, So they were constantly putting out stuff, and I think they had a Dave Mirra BMX or whatever, and then they made like a Triple X version of that game or something. Like it wasn't Dave Mirra, like he wasn't the sponsor of it, but it was like same sort of game, but they just had naked models or something in the game, and it was called like Triple X or something.
Oh,
it was
go
weird.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Yes.
That one, StarCraft.
StarCraft was pretty crazy.
Yeah. That always freaked me out. I'd always like I was saying the other day, I'd fall asleep because it was so warm in your apartment, and I would wake up, and you'd be playing that game, and it'd be like some weird Scottish alien, just like, oh heavens, the better Detroit, look at.
There's a lot of 3DO. The 3DO itself is a pretty crazy system. Like if you get the games, the Wing Commander, remember, the lions, or the tiger guy or whatever is talking to you, and you had to pick your girlfriend. That scene's rough. Like that, if you ever play Wing Commander 3, that's rough because you got two girls that like you in the game, and you got to
you walk into the bar. you walk into the bar and they're like, "Which one do you choose to walk to?" And
it's like,
spoiler alert, it doesn't help which one you go to,
right?
Because the other one gets pissed.
Or you could not go to either of them. You can just get back in the elevator, and then neither of them stick around. That's also bullshit. I know like EA tried to do something at one time where they had like a live action game. Like you would get phone calls and you got like a text messages and things from them, and you would get codes and stuff. It was a failure. It had some sort of budget on it though, where they were kind of like, crazy. And I think it was like really more of a, there's these certain experiences you can find on certain things now. They're not really games. They're more like experiences. I don't know how to explain it. Like you might think you're hacking into something as a game, and then the game like starts taking you down this weird rabbit hole of showing you like a hostage on a video and that you can save them. And then you got to go online and find more information in order to unlock it. They kind of did that with Lost. Remember Lost, the show? And they would put in like those Morse codes, and then people would like decipher that stuff and find like clues in the intro and everything. It's kind of like that. Like for those people that are really invested in like, that kind of thing, they want to like, find the mystery. I don't know. I don't know if that's still a thing. That was a thing in the 2000s though. Like people were kind of into that sort of stuff. Cicada and all that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for the show. Hopefully, both of us will be alive on the next episode next week, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Peace.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.